Closers, welcome to the Close the Deal podcast. You probably have a broken promise. You may be doing the thing that you don't really enjoy for a living or have not tapped into your passion. And I've got a very special guest today. Her name is Aideen Riada from Traverse City area of Michigan, beautiful part of the country. And she helps people with speaking and tap into what's missing. So she is like in perfect alignment with what this show is all about. And she does this for a living. And she also uses vocal training and coaching and so forth to help in that process. Is that right? Am I okay?
That's right.
So, Aideen, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. We all have a place in the world and we're all trying to figure out what we're doing with that, with this moment that we get.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about helping people to express what they really want to do and to find their mission, to align that with the values that they have, but to do something a little different, like to be able to do something creative, to take a look at maybe a line of work or a profession and do it your way.
Yeah. So I want to unpack that a little bit more in just a second, because I know everybody in a position like ours has gone through some challenge or crisis or whatever you want to call it, and it forms who they are and why they do what they do.
hmm
Share a little bit about your background and how you do help people.
Oh my gosh. I think my biggest challenge was looking outside of myself for an answer. And I had this real wish to do more with music or to be a singer. And I kept trying and I kept failing. And I kept trying to do it, in a way that was maybe forced. So what happened was I ended up in London working at stuff I hated, having a big problem with a boss of mine. Like I was like, I want to take her to court over this. And I was angry. I was not earning. I lost weight. And my dad, this is at age 39, 40. My dad was so worried about me. He went to London and asked me to come back to Ireland with him. And I reluctantly did because I was just such a stubborn person. And it took me 6 months to start back trying again. And this time I was trying from a different perspective. I was being more responsive to this current circumstances. I wasn't angry anymore. I just decided that this was the circumstances and I was going to make the most of what right in front of me. Started sowing small seeds toward what I wanted to do. And that's when I set up my business. And I started to notice I was being inspired to set up something completely different from anything I'd ever seen anyone else do.
Were you trying to stay in what you were doing to fix it so you could keep making
Yeah.
a living? And it was just
Yeah.
inside?
Yeah. I was trying. I thought I didn't like that I was failing. So I kept trying, right? And sometimes when you're failing, it's a sign that you shouldn't be trying. But that was a very hard lesson for me.
Yeah. It's an easy trap for anyone to fall into that. So how do you help people? I mean, because this is such an interesting way that you do this. How do you help
Mhm.
people?
Well, what I noticed was I was trying to voice something. I'm big into sound and, how you speak and how you express yourself. But I realized that between the inner voice and the outer voice, there was a bridge. And that bridge ended up, what I found was that bridge is a self love, like self awareness, self respect, self acceptance, and to understand you have value. Because you're not going to take that little seed of like, oh, I'd love to do this. You're not going to take that and show it to the world unless you acknowledge that there's value in you doing something that nobody else has thought of, that nobody else might really get behind straight away. Like how many great business owners, their their family didn't know that that was going to be a good idea. They got dissuaded, they got turned down. So we need to have a sense of there's value in what I am wanting.
Yeah.
And to me, that comes through a kind of a series of being accepted by someone else, actually. So you need to be around somebody who says, maybe there's something to that. Let's look at it. And then you can grow that confidence over time in yourself and in your ideas.
And you talk about speaking to it, literally.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we have to express what we want to create in order to create it. And so it comes down to you saying, well, I actually want to do this, or I would like to do this, or I wish I could do this. And whatever way you start is good because most of the time these things get hidden. And I think this speaks to your podcast. What you're trying to do is speak to people more about what is hiding there that you haven't really
Exactly.
expressed.
Yeah. And I, at a young age, at 23 or 24, I had my one and only ulcer. I was in the wrong job. And 14 months into it, I got an ulcer. I've never had an ulcer since, but I knew something was seriously wrong when I'm young and healthy. And my girlfriend back then, my wife, asked me a question that was so it's asked a lot today, but nobody asked that question. But she asked me, "What do you love to do?" And like you, she's a singer. And she has a passion for singing. She loves the arts. And she asked me, "What is it I love to do?" And couldn't I was brought up to be a doctor or a lawyer is what I heard, and I'm like, I couldn't even answer the question.
Yeah.
Could not even answer the question, and I became intentional about figuring it out. So you're saying you're meeting people at the crossroads of trying to figure it out with what you help.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, we don't bring up our kids to think for themselves. We don't necessarily always give them the choices to do things that they're interested in. And parents, because of fear, try to mold their kids into certain careers or into certain ways of doing things.
Yeah.
But there's probably more value in having them do the thing they like and having them fail at it than having them do something they just don't care about and being a success.
Boy, that is
It's a service level success. It won't be, you know.
100%. So what is a big win you've had with someone as of recent that you've served somebody helping them?
One big win is I've been working with someone around voice who was bullied in a corporate job
Mhm.
and then decided to work for herself. But this very sweet, tender hearted person was still kind of trembling underneath the surface, and building a graphic design business and, out there and networking and everything. But you could feel it, right? You could feel it. They're not coming out of their shell here. And I've been running a voice summit for the past 5 years, and she's attended as an attendee for the first four. And this year she spoke at it. And that to me was a huge thing to see someone come from that. And, look, what have I done for her? Look, I've held space for her. I've been there for her to talk her through issues that were going on. I've had practical advice. I've had more intuitive advice, and then it's a blossoming of this relationship. And the choices that she's made have let her grow. And that's the important.
So that's the key for sure. Yeah, 100%. So this is how you help people using their voice. You call it the Voice Summit. Why the Voice Summit?
Well, I think voice can mean many things. And, I'm a big believer in the physical voice has to be worked, right? It's like any muscle. We need to be able to use it. We need to repeat what we want to say so that it becomes natural. And people have, our brains naturally don't like when things are not predictable, right? So if you don't know what's going to come out of your mouth or how it's going to sound, you're going to hesitate.
Mm.
And the only way you're not going to hesitate is if you try and it may come out wrong a few times. So it's like a practice and, repeat. And it's almost like a guessing game. And I think a lot of people don't realize this about life, but everybody is guessing their way through life. We don't know. I didn't know I'd be doing 5 voice summits. I was like, okay, I think this sounds like a good plan. And then I do one and then I like it. And then I do another one. I get great responses. And then I do another one. And then it goes back a little bit. And I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. And then I come back. We're all guessing through life. But when we're speaking, we need to remember that. We need to find safe places to express what it is we want to say, because then from a small 1-to-1 situation, it could be a 1-to-5 situation. And then you could end up on a big stage. You could end up doing a promotional video for yourself. Or you could end up writing a book, but we need to start somewhere and we need to be aware that it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning.
That's the key right there. So I want to ask you one more question about the Voice Summit. Do you ask them to step on stage and speak, or are they speaking one-on-one with people? I'm just curious.
So what I do is I try to make it a forum style. So I buddy up 2 speakers to speak on the same topic. So I like them 2 speakers to collaborate. So they have to connect with each other a few times before the summit. And then they present for 10 minutes each and they talk about it in a group. hey, this was what you said. Yeah. What do you think of this? Right. It's about collaboration. I'm not into this like, oh, I'll talk for 30 minutes and then bye, see you soon. And then someone else talk for 30 minutes. Because speaking and voice is about communicating.
Yeah.
It's not about just here's something, here's a great idea. No, it's about here's an idea. What do you think of that? How do you respond to that?
Yeah.
So we have Q&As, we have breakout rooms, and we even have a debrief for all the speakers the day after.
Love it.
That's one of my favorite parts. So we go in and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this session was this for me and this for me." And I did a networking call a week later for the attendees and the speakers. So I want it to be like a ripple effect of like, what can happen from this? What are you feeling that you want to say now? And how can I support you in that?
Okay. So we're gonna make the pivot because you said something a second ago about you just got to start
Hmm.
somewhere, and verbalizing it is key. And every entrepreneur I've interviewed, well over 100 entrepreneurs and sales folks through the course of this podcast, and there's that common thread. This is kind of what led to this show. The common thread is everyone has that something that they have the unresolved issue or unresolved thing that they want to do. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if it's operator, a singer, or whatever it is, everybody's got that. So I'm gonna ask you this. There are 4 areas of our lives where I think people really have something unresolved. And they kind of generally fall into one of these 4 buckets, and we can work around the buckets if we have to a little bit.
Sure.
It's faith, health, relationship, or business. And I want you to what comes straight to your mind of those 4, and if we can bend it a little
So
with you.
yeah, so relationship I think is where we need to go because
Okay.
yes, this is interesting because I know it's like figuring out what's the unresolved issue what's the thing that you've been hiding from? What's the thing that you've been wishing for that you just haven't done, that you've put aside, you've demoted in terms of priorities. And so the reason I want to mention this is part of relationship because it's part of my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And it's part of how I wish to be seen and how I wish to relate to the world.
Mhm. So how do you okay, so for yourself, so that's the one you would just want is there another area as well? Because what I found doing this
Mhm.
now,
Yeah.
I'm only 4 episodes in. What I found is one guy was talking about what he thought was his end goal, and he needed another goal to get to the other end goal, crossing categories.
Hmm.
Is there another area here that kinda where there's an unresolved or is a desire
Yes.
that to do? Where would that fall?
That would be in my business
Okay, good.
because, because I sing, I work in a voice business, I give other people access to the stage, and there's a tendency with me to water down the whole Aideen to fit into here's what a business person might like to see about me before they would come to me for
Mm.
voice coaching. How much of the true me do I put into my business? And I've decided only in the last 6 months that I am 100% going to just show the whole me.
Yeah.
And so I have a belief that me following the thing that is my big unresolved thing that you know what it is. We're coming to it, guys. That it will be very positive for my business overall. I think that they're going to need to weave into each other. But in the end, I think my business will improve because I'm being more honest about who I am.
I think that's so bloody true because I watch Social, right? And as adults, we want when we do Social, we want it to be perfect. We want we'll re-record it. And you watch a 21-year-old start a business, they don't care. They just go out there. Well, some do probably, but a lot of them just will go out there and it's raw footage and people can relate to it because it's not filtered.
Mhm.
And we wanna polish everything up, and I see and especially see that with career professionals. Entrepreneurs are a little looser because they've made some mistakes and they see failure as part of the process, not that it's a negative.
Mhm.
And so with you, you're trying to of those 2, one influences the other?
Mhm.
Yeah. Which one bridges the gap to where you wanna go, and where is it you wanna go? What's the decision you wanna make and a commitment you wanna make to
Yeah.
to do that one thing?
Well, here's the thing. I've been going to networking meetings, and then instead of leading with I'm a voice coach, I'm saying I'm a singer and an intuitive voice coach, right? So that took a lot for me to start saying it in that order.
Mhm.
It makes for many people it's way more interesting for them
Ah,
because then they're like, oh, if they don't need a voice coach, they can find my music, they can get to know me. There's a hook there that brings them into my world.
mhm.
And so the fact that I haven't released an album and that I wish to, and that I've been putting it off because I've been focusing on making money in my business, because I've been focusing on maybe talking more about confidence than talking about voice. Maybe I've been, looking for a certain type of client that isn't as interested in that part of what I do. That has had an effect on me over time. It makes me less enthusiastic about promoting myself. So,
So
say for instance, I did a Facebook Live today on my personal page of me out in the woods listening to birds singing. And I said, these birds are all singing at the same time and they're not trying to harmonize. They are just out there. Nobody's going, oh, maybe I shouldn't speak because, it doesn't go with the woodpecker sound, right? So we have to know that our voice is needed and our voice is part of nature
mm,
because we are all here. Nobody else can take your place. Like you have a right to be who you are because you were born.
we
And there's space for everyone, and I think there's a lot of fear around that.
there is a lot of fear around that.
Yeah.
That's what you just said, your voice is needed.
Mhm.
That's at the core of our being.
Yeah.
We have
And
to
it's not always
we hear
needed by
first.
the
Yeah,
yeah, there's people in our lives that won't want or need your voice,
that's
right?
right.
There's people who have already they've decided who you are, and it could be a family member.
Mm.
And sometimes the key people in your life that you wish would receive your voice or receive what you have to say or say that's a great idea, they won't do it, unfortunately. And they probably can't.
Yeah.
They probably just can't. It's not in they don't have an ability to do that. So we have to look outside of ourselves. We have to listen to podcasts. We have to get a voice coach from time to time, or we have to join a club or something. We will find our people and we will find people that will support us if we look at all.
So the
Um,
so the very thing that you coach people on day in and day out has been your Achilles heel to some degree to do
yes.
for yourself.
Yes.
Wow.
I think for a lot of people in the coaching world, there is a huge amount of that goes on.
Yeah.
But I think, when it comes to a teacher, if you think of a teacher for elementary or primary school kids, they don't need to know a lot, right? They could be still in the big life plan. They're still learning. And I think we need to be 3 or 4 steps ahead of the people we're coaching.
Yeah.
But we all have so much to offer someone who's on the journey behind us, right?
Yeah.
So even though I know that I have a ways to go and there's people I'm going, oh my goodness, I wish I could be like them and I wish I had that confidence. I have to be where I am. And so that's part of that self-acceptance part, that it's okay to be on a journey, to not know everything, but to know enough to help the people that look up to me and what I do.
So it sounds like your commitment is getting an album done. What would you say is the number one reason it's held you back? The business?
I self kind of doubt. When
Right there.
you create an identity around something. Like it took me a long time to say I'm a singer.
Yeah.
I used to say, "Oh, I love to sing." I'd never say I was a singer. But that took me 20 years to start saying I was a singer, right? Now I'm trying to say I'm a songwriter.
Mm.
But here's the thing, I believe that but similar to the teaching analogy, I believe there's a stage for everyone. And maybe it is in the local coffee shop in the corner, right? Maybe it is in a bar, maybe it is on a stage in the local opera house. We don't know where our level is. We have to start somewhere and we can go somewhere from there. And that's what I'm planning to do. But I'd like to have I've released singles and I've got some great YouTube videos up and you can find them online if you look for the name Aideen and put in the song Rule the World because that's a cover song that I did that people love. If you put those two things into YouTube, you'll find my channel. But I'm still working on having an identity around that, and to kind of to have a
Don't see
similar.
yourself as a singer.
Yeah, like I'm a singer, I'm a
Which is
songwriter,
crazy
but
because you've already put yourself out there.
I know it's silly, but we're all going through a version of that.
Okay, so now you're gonna formalize it with a vinyl or a
Yes,
CD or
yes,
MP3, whatever it is.
yeah.
So what okay, so your commitment is to create your first album. Is this gonna be like 4 songs, 10 songs, just something to get going?
I would like to do 10 songs, but I
Okay.
have a problem. I don't have all the songs written. So that's a big hurdle. What I've been doing, so since Christmas, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. I put a guitar behind me here in my office. I started playing it in the mornings. I starting to get my, the little calluses on the fingers from playing. And I started taking singing lessons again.
Good for you.
Right? Yeah,
Good for you. So, all right. So let's say 5 songs. That way you're not inhibited. How many songs do you have right now?
I have about 3 or 4. Yeah.
Well, let's say your album it consists of 4 songs or 5 songs. That way you make the steps to get into the studio and well, you got some advantage there. I think your husband helps you with music, right?
Yes, he
So, okay,
does.
so he's a producer. So you have that should not be an excuse not to have an
I
album.
know. I should have an album easier than most of the world
That's
because
right, 'cause you gotta
I've got
most
the guy
people
who does it right on my doorstep.
and most people have to go out and find a studio, figure out how to do it, pay some money to have it done right, and
Mhm.
got all that built in-house. So, no excuses here. So what is your okay, so what's realistic timeline for you to put together your first album for you?
My my goal. So this is what I tend to do, right? I go too far ahead. So I, in my mind, am releasing an album in January, February of next year.
Mhm.
I'm going to Chicago, and if you guys know venues in Chicago where you want an Irish girl to sing songs off her new album, contact me because that's when I want to do a little mini to the Irish people in Chicago. Here's an album from someone who's, has something to say. And I have an idea that there's a little bit of an Enya-esque version of me coming through. It's a very soulful sound. It's
Oh,
not rock. So I have an idea of the vibe. I have an idea of when I want it to come out. I have an idea. I've started writing more lyrics. But creativity is one of these curious things that you can't force. And if I work too hard on my own business and I fill my day with clients or I fill my day with marketing, there's no time for creativity at the end of it. It's very hard to switch back into that other side of my brain. So that's part of the biggest challenge for me.
I get that piece because if you're in I call it a flow state. I mean, if I'm doing creative marketing, whatever that is, or writing, I mean, I could work 24 hours straight and just zone out on it's my hyper ADHD mode, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be disturbed. I want to focus on that one thing and I'll push everything else aside, which is a blessing and a curse to be able to do that.
Hmm.
But for you to get this going, you've got to take that first step. And it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's got to be this first step. So when do you start taking, okay, so the end goal is by, say, January 1st. When are you going to be in Chicago?
I'd like to be in Chicago in around St. Patrick's Day, of course, when
Okay,
the season of Ireland.
so a couple months later, so you get to work
Yeah.
to push the album out a little bit.
Yeah. I'm writing this down, Yule, because I need to.
Yeah,
January
January
1st.
1st, and then you before we gotta it's like a little mini goal after the goal, but you gotta
Yeah.
perform in Chicago in I said March?
Yeah. So it'll be in
Okay.
March. Yeah.
Okay, so January 1st, and then but you have to start. When are
Yeah.
you gonna start?
I feel like I've sort of vaguely started, but I'm not sure if I really have, Yule, because
Well,
I'm doing things that support it, but I'm not necessarily knuckling down.
put a stake in the ground. When is that gonna
So what does it look like if I'm really taking it seriously? I guess it would look like maybe,
it doesn't have to be perfect. That takes the edge off.
yeah, I think I need to maybe set a goal for a daily, because if I do something daily,
Go
then
for
I
it.
might miss a day, right? I might miss a day, but I will most days to daily do little bit of journaling for lyrics,
Right.
right? A little bit of playing guitar, And then the other thing would be warming up my voice and, kind of honing that as an instrument.
Mhm.
So that is 3 items. So maybe I could loop them. I could do journaling one day, playing guitar the next day, and warming up my voice on the third day.
And next thing you know, before you know it, you're ready to start recording. So,
Yes.
so realistic time to start that is now? Yeah, or
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
so now.
I mean, well, my husband's busy at the moment. So
And the
I have a kind of
studio
a I would say from July 1st, because I have a goal right now. I'm doing a little bit of a rejig on my pricing and product suite and getting some extra help on marketing. So I I won't want to start recording until I've done a bit of that, I
it
think.
won't take you long. I mean, once you have the 4 songs or the 5 song, we got 4 songs.
Yeah.
Once you have
Yeah.
that song, going in a studio won't take I mean, you've got a studio. It
Yeah.
take now do you bring in musicians?
I have a cellist that's
Okay.
performed on one of my songs. I have a guy doing double bass, but I have to come back to this 4 or 5 songs idea, right? So that ends up being an EP, but I do want a full album.
Uh, well, then
So, but maybe you're right. Maybe I just need to aim for an EP. Um, at
an
my
album an album can be I mean, I've had albums that have 1 song, well, a whole album, literally. It's like
yeah.
1 song on one side, another song on the other side, 2 songs. That was an album. So you're defining yourself as an album as 10 songs. That's not the case. It could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 10, it could be 15, it could be 20.
Okay, let's make a decision on this, right? Because if I don't have clarity on this, then I'm going to second guess
Clarity's the
everything.
key. The clarity is the key.
The
Yeah.
clarity is the key. So in my head, 10 songs is ideal for an album. However, I do take your point that it could be less. So I would be happy if it was 8 as a
Okay.
minimum. So if I'm only aiming for 8 songs, I would feel like, oh my gosh, I'm more than halfway there. That gives me a lot of, that makes me feel a little bit more like I've got some momentum going instead of feeling like it's a huge climb to get there.
Alright, so the commitment is, an album with 8 songs
Yes.
by January 1st.
Yes, I can do that. I feel better about this now. This is
I
good.
absolutely believe you can do that, and then you'll be ready for your first gig to drink some green beer.
Grease. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Americans do St. Patrick's Day so different from Ireland, I have to say. I did never had Guinness macaroni and cheese in Ireland, but I did have it here.
Have you been to Chicago during St. Patrick's before?
No, I was there prior to St. Patrick's Day. I was following another band that came from Ireland to
Yeah.
do gigs, and we had a great gig in Chicago. So that was really fun, but I didn't get to stay for the whole
They
parade
dye
or
the
anything.
rivers green, so
Yeah, I should be there for that next year, 2027. Here I come.
there you go. Well, this has been fantastic. Wow. So if somebody wants to follow you, they can follow you or Rule the World Aideen on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's Aideen. That's how you spell it?
Yes.
Okay.
AID, 2 E's and an N.
And if they want to find your website for coaching, what's the website address for that?
So that is my first name, Aideen dash ni, Ni
Mhm.
dash Riada, Riada. So that's ni means daughter of, the way O means son of. So this is the Irish version of my name. So Ni dash Riada.
Dot.
Com.
There we go. All
Thanks
right.
for this is my problem, right? I need to just complete things. You're fantastic. I need you at my side at all times.
Oh, yeah. This is fun. All right. So, folks, you've been listening to the Close the Deal podcast. We'll have her episode on closethedeal.com. Of course, she'll be on all the players. If you want to share your story, we're looking for operators, creatives who are at a high level who want to make a commitment online to move things forward in their lives, to get that one to close on the to finish what you started and to close that one thing that has just been gnawing. Aideen, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Yule. I'm going to send you a copy of one of my songs that hasn't been released yet as
Oh,
my gift to you.
that's a treat. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone who's listened. And if you have something you haven't closed the deal on that matters to you, maybe you could take a leaf out of Yule's book and get started.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you.